Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Outside the Box. Had a little technical difficulties there. I couldn't start recording for some reason. But anyway, that's my problem, not yours. I'm joined by my fellow um, writer from Clemson Tiger Junkies, Freddie Hoost. And a little later, we'll be joined by our guest, Jason Priester of allclemson.com. We always appreciate him being here. He's kind of a wealth of knowledge. Um, if you don't mind, take a moment and go into our Facebook page or our YouTube channel and like and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. And if you like what you see, please feel free to comment. We have those. We love hearing comments from you folks. Freddie, we'll start off today with some. First of all, how are you? Hope you're doing okay.
I'm doing okay, bud. Glad to be here.
Great, great. I see that Jason is getting ready to join us, so he's very timely. Hey, Jason, welcome.
Good
We're
time.
starting our talk about baseball, and I saw where you had posted, or someone had posted, that we had dropped in the rankings from 18 to 24. Now, that's not a big deal, a whoop-de-doo deal, but it does show, sort of what last week did to the Clemson, baseball team. Freddie, what were your thoughts on what you saw last week?
I guess you could say I was a little more disappointed with the Georgia State loss than I was the Miami series, just simply because, those midweek games you want to get those, and Miami is by far a much better team than Georgia State. So that series to me kind of told us where we're really at and where we need to go, or what we need to be looking at going forward. But the Georgia State loss, that one kind of stung a little bit more for me than the two losses to Miami. I was glad to see us come back, and I guess you felt kind of like they took their frustrations out on Miami Sunday. Every time you turn around, somebody else was getting a hit, and that's what you want to see going forward. And hopefully, that's turned that corner for us, and we can build off of that. How about you, Jason?
Baseball is a long season. It's kind of different than football. You're gonna have ups and downs, and you want to see the team win most of their midweek games. You don't want to drop too many of those on. But I thought the first series was gonna be a very small sample size of what's to come, because Miami's pretty solid this year, or supposed to be pretty solid this year. They got some decent pitching, and they came to town. They caught Clemson while they were slumping. Caden Grice is struggling mightily. Dylan Brewer's been struggling. Guys that they were counting on being key cogs in that lineup, and they've just struggled here lately. And I'll put it this way: if you'd have told me before the start of the season that they'd be 15-4 right now, I'd have took it 365 days of the year, 7 days a week, and celebrated every night. So I don't think I think it's far too early to hit the panic button. You just got some guys struggling in the lineup, and I've always thought that this team's going to go as far as its pitching can take it. Anyways, I don't think they're ever going to be a great hitting team. They need to be better with the timely hits. They need to be better with runners on second and third, first and second, and that kind of thing. Runners in scoring position, runners on base. They definitely got to be better with some timely hitting, but they're never going to be a great hitting team. There's not a ton of power in the lineup. So I still stand by what I said preseason. If the team's going to go anywhere, it's going to be on the backs of the pitching, and we'll see if that can hold up. I thought Nick Clayton was outstanding yesterday, probably his best start of the year. Hopefully a sign of things to come.
I was talking with Freddie before the broadcast, and one of the things that I said, and I'm a little bit over dramatic at times, but I kind of think that Sunday's game, in the grand scheme of things, might not mean a lot, but it'll be a game that we can point to later in the season. If the surge continues and they improve, that they can say, hey, we stopped the bleeding and we kind of turned it around. Again, I'm not a baseball aficionado, but I have been watching, and I do see, even you could see the body language of these kids Friday and Saturday that was just down. I don't know what happened between Saturday and Sunday, but there was a much greater energy about the team on Sunday. So, well, anything else about baseball? I mean, we've got a lot to discuss tonight, but I don't want to leave anything unsaid.
Yeah, you said you thought you saw a difference between Saturday and Sunday. I can't answer that. I don't know. I kind of took the weekend off. I wasn't up there this weekend, so
Yeah. Well,
I can't answer.
it was just
You
an
brought up
observation.
something a minute ago, Jason, that Caden Grice, and while I was watching it yesterday, they were talking about that was the first multi-hit game he's had since February. I think it was early February. I might be wrong on that, but yeah, that's gonna go a long ways. He's gonna have to do, you know what I'm saying? He's gonna be expected to do more than that.
Yeah, he's struggling, man. He's struggling big time. He's struggling to see the ball. He's really struggling hitting off speed, breaking stuff. He's not even seeing fastballs hardly right now. He's struggling so mightily. I was glad to see, Monty moving down in the lineup a little bit. I think he dropped him to the 6-7 hole, something I can't remember specifically. Him and Brewer both, I thought they needed to be dropped down a little bit for the time being. But, there's other guys in that lineup, Blackwell, Corbett, Wagner. Those guys can hit the ball too. Like I said, there's not a ton of power. I mean, outside of Grice, Brewer, Wagner, they can hit some home runs, but Grice is your real power guy, really, and French can hit some home runs for you too. But this is a team that needs to be better with runners on base when it comes to hitting the ball, driving in runs. I know a lot of people think that they're always swinging up for the fences, and I don't buy into that. I know Monty Lee's a big believer in the analytics. I don't think he's got his guys up there swinging for the fences. I think they're trying to, drive the ball. Drive the ball don't mean drive it over the fence.
That's right.
The goal is to hit line drives, get solid contact on the ball. Drive the ball don't mean hit home runs. They're not up there swinging for the pitches on fences on 0-2 counts and stuff.
Well, that was one thing I noticed Saturday. It seemed like we were hitting the ball really well, but we were hitting them right at people. And that, that too will not help. And so.
Well, I noticed, Friday when they got down early, Miami, he just hit. Mac Anglin did not have his best stuff Friday. He was walking guys. I thought he got squeezed a little bit in the first inning, and he didn't have a lot of confidence in his fastball after that. But he definitely didn't have his best stuff, but as far as his command goes. But when Miami was hitting him, there's a lot of ground balls, man, that just found holes. Mm-hmm. Like I said earlier, baseball is a game. It's a long season. It's a game of streaks sometimes. Sometimes things just don't go your way, man. And I just don't think a 4-game losing streak is really nothing to be all overly concerned with unless it snowballs on you. So we'll see if yesterday was them making sure it does not snowball on them.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I see they have Coastal Carolina and Winthrop tomorrow and Wednesday, so hopefully they can turn it around and keep that new streak going.
Coastal's coming to Doug Kingsmore, and they have yet to win a road game this season.
Oh, well.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Spring practice notes. They are on spring break, and they will return on the 27th of this month. But there was, a lot of information out of the post practice or scrimmage interviews on Wednesday, and I had the opportunity to check them out throughout the day and saw them all. And there's a lot of information going on out there. I was struck by Wes Goodwin's demeanor. He is something. He's sharp. He appears to be a technical, strategic thinker. He's always thinking ahead. And I'm sure that, that there are others in the past, Brent Venables being one, that probably is that same type. But he does that without a lot of intensity. He's kind of a low key, but man, he is just sharp. Freddie, did you happen to look at any of those interviews, or have you seen Goodwin on interviews before?
I've seen him on interviews before. I did not get to see the last two. I was trying to today, and things kind of snowballed on me, and I didn't get a chance to. But I've been impressed with him since he took over. It told me a lot when Brent Venables tried his best to get him to go with him to Oklahoma. That that told me a lot right there. I like the fact that, even going back to when Chad Morris left, I keep referring back to, Dabo made it clear back then that it wasn't a Chad Morris offense. It wasn't a Dabo Swinney offense. It was a Clemson offense. It was a Clemson defense. And so I've always felt like that he's going to put the right person in place. And he already had somebody, and we've seen it now, he had somebody, ready to. Now, is it going to be Brent Venables all over it? No, I don't think so. I believe he's got the chance to make his own impact on Clemson now. Wes Goodwin does, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Jason, you've seen him more than any of us. Do you get an impression that he's very confident? He seems to be like he's walking in confidence.
Yeah, I think he's pretty confident. I still don't think he's very comfortable talking in front of people, but that's just me. He's still a little awkward at times. He's. Somebody told me today, he's not well versed in the coach speak yet. That might have been one of y'all.
It was good. Good.
But I think Clemson's defense is in good hands. You're not gonna really know though until you see it on the field. And I know they were dominant against Iowa State in the bowl game, but I don't think there's a whole lot to be gained from that game if you're looking at the defense, because I think that was a perfect matchup. No matter who was running the defense, that offense against Clemson's defense, it's just a bad matchup for that offense. But I think I talk to a lot of recruits, and if it's a defensive kid, I'll ask them about the change, Wes Goodwin, Brent Venables, and all that. And I have not gotten one iota of a feeling the first kid that they thought Clemson's defense was not in good hands under Wes Goodwin. And to me, that's what I'm going on. I don't go on by how he looks in interviews. I didn't think honestly, I thought he said he repeated himself a whole bunch of times Wednesday. I didn't think he said a whole lot most of the time. And that goes for a lot of coaches in the profession. You're just not going to get a lot out of them. And I just kind of base it on the players that I talked to, the high school players, because we haven't seen him actually coach but the one game. And, it doesn't matter if it's a kid that's unranked or one of the highest ranked players in the country. They all say, it's different but the same. And who was it that I was talking to a while back? It might have been Peter Woods, one of the top defensive linemen in the 2023 class. Told me, it was different, but in good ways, and he thought some things were better. The way they were doing things, I know that they've used the word simplified a lot during these interview sessions during spring practice. You've heard that word over and over and over. And I think Goodwin tried to touch on some of that Wednesday. I think he tried to make sure people understood that they were not simplifying the scheme. The scheme was going to remain the same. But they were just trying to not put as much on the players' plates all at the same time. I remember Nick Eason saying instead of giving them 15 things to learn in a day, they wanted to give them 3 things to learn in a day. They wanted them to think faster, have their eyes in the right place, that kind of stuff. And I think that's going to bode real well for this defense. A lot of the freshmen in certain positions had a tough time getting on the field under Venables because it was so much to learn. And maybe we start to see that turn the other way now.
Well, one of the things that impressed me, talking about, simplified, one of the comments I really liked is the way he explained it. He said, we're not dumbing down or simplifying it because the players can't understand it. He says, we're just kind of doing some changes with the installation and the fundamentals where they'll job together on the same day, where they're actually there learning the fundamentals and taking the installation. He says, so far it's worked well. So maybe that's one of those things that, I think he was almost not defensive, but he was almost, firm that there are going to be changes, but it's Clemson's defense, and there's not going to be any blasphemous changes from Brent Venables, but this is definitely going to be his defense. So he, he made me laugh when he talked. Somebody asked him about somebody saying that he didn't have to deal with Brent Venables' 47 blitzes, and Wes Goodwin said, "No, he's going to have to deal with 46." He said, "Because that's what we're going to have." He said, "But we've got things that Brent Venables has never seen." So I like the little feistiness there. I think that was really interesting. He touched on a couple of things, but the one thing that I liked was somebody asked the question, what are your views on the offense that you're playing against? Did either of you happen to see that or read that? I mean, I thought it was interesting that what he gave his breakdown of what he thought of Clemson's offense. No, okay.
Jason,
Well, he said
I didn't catch it.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't remember. I watched the whole thing, but I'm not real specific on what you're
Well,
talking about.
just to touch base on it, what he was saying is basically that it was work in progress, but he was really impressed. He said, the wide receivers were a group that had injuries, but they were really, really strong. The running backs, Phil Maffa was the ultimate impression. He gave him good vibes about what can happen with him in the backfield this year. He also talked about DJ and Cade, and they were gratuitous, good things to say. But I was just interesting that somebody had the presence of mind to ask the question about what he thinks about the other side of the ball. So one of the things that I was interested to know about Brandon Streeter is whether he would be overly apologetic or what's the word I'm looking for, or offer excuses for the issues last year with DJ and the offense. And he didn't back away from that. What do you think, Freddie, that Streeter's thinking? Where do you think his mindset is going into the season? Is he going to give DJ a wide breadth or wide berth, or
just the way I'm looking at it, I'm thinking that Brandon Streeter's a quarterback, and remember, a quarterback has to have a short memory. A former quarterback, you got to have a short memory, and I think that's what he's going with. We're not going to talk about last year. We're going forward. We're going to see what this year holds. Is the way I'm taking that. That's the way I think you would want this coaching staff to really look at it. Now, I'm not saying that they don't realize that it happened. I mean, we had a down year last season, and I think they're going to be the first to tell you that. But at the same time, this is a new team, a new new coaching staff. Everybody's ready to go forward, and so I think that's the way I took that.
I was highly opinionated about DJ last year, and I little part of me regrets that. But I did write a story earlier this week about DJ against the world, and I don't. That's a little dramatic, but I think it's no less true. I think DJ has got to have that mentality. He's got to face up and prove all the naysayers wrong. My question, I guess, and Jason, you can answer this or not, is he going to be on a short leash?
He's not going to be able to go a whole season throwing more interceptions than touchdowns this year. I mean, they are not going to, if he's struggling, they're not going to sacrifice a shot at winning a conference championship to appease a quarterback's feelings. I mean, this is a bottom line business. I know people gave Dabo Swinney hell last year for not, making a quarterback switch. I was not one of those people. I didn't think there was a switch to be made. I didn't think there was really any other options. And I think that was kind of probably the mindset of the coaching staff too. I don't think that's the case this year. I think you got other options. You got a freshman who is killing it halfway through his first spring practice. I think he needs a little bulk before he's ready to play every down at this level. I mean, but if they need him, he's going to play. That don't mean he'll survive the whole season. But if they need him, he's going to play. You also got Hunter Johnson coming in the summertime. I don't expect, I think he's here more to be a coach off the field than anything. I'm not expecting him to be a factor in this at all unless there are monumental injuries. But I just think this year you got an option you didn't have last year. You got an up and coming, young, hungry freshman who, to me, reminds me of Deshaun Watson. I mean, he's so they're both so similar. Came in almost the exact same way. They're both just gamers. To me, both of them have ice waters in their vein. Talking about a kid that never lost a game as a high school starting quarterback in high school, 2 state championships. I mean, beat records that were held by guys like Carson Wentz at his high school and somebody else. I forget his name off the top of my head, but maybe Drew Brees. I can't remember. But and played in one of the toughest divisions in the country. That league he plays in Texas is one of the toughest divisions in the country. So it's not like he was doing it against a bunch of scrubs. This kid's played at the highest level. He's won at the highest level. And the moment has never been too big for him. And I don't expect it will be now either. If his number gets called, I expect he'll produce. And going back to what your question was, I don't think DJ is going to get a very long leash, but I don't think it's going to be extremely short either. I fully expect him to be the starter game 1, no matter what happens, and then kind of see where things go from there.
Well, you can give no player a higher compliment than to compare him to Deshaun Watson. And we'll talk a little bit about Deshaun and his future in just a little bit. One of the things on both sides of the ball I saw they were talking about is the replacement of leadership with Skalski and Booth and Turner leaving the defensive side of the ball. Who was going to step up, and then the offensive players. There's a void there too. Jason, you have been on the practice field. I know not a lot, but you've been there more than Freddie or I. Do you see any leaders emerging that can help and lead this team?
I don't think leadership's going to be a problem at all. This team's, last year was young, a lot of youth, a lot of underclassmen. There's a lot of guys on this team now that'll be playing in their third seasons. A lot of them in their final seasons. They've been around now. And I think the ups and downs of last year only helped them grow into better leaders. But I think Sheridan Jones is a guy that's grown into that role, in the secondary. I think Trenton Simpson's a guy that's grown into that role with the linebackers. Brian Rasee and Tyler Davis and Xavier Thomas with the defensive line, even Justin Mascol, KJ Henry, all those guys, they've been here 4 or 5 years. They've been around the block. I don't think leadership's going to be lacking by any stretch of the imagination on the defense side of the ball. Maybe a little bit, maybe get a little bit less on the other side. But, you got to have DJ Uiagalelei step into that role. He's a junior now. He's got to take command of the offense. It's got to be his team if this team's going to be successful with him at the helm. And I've seen that in the little bit of practice that they let us into 3 practices at the beginning of the spring. And I thought he was doing that in the little bit that we saw. Now, does that translate into success on the field? I don't have no idea. But I do think he was stepping into more of a leadership role, being more of an on-field leader, taking more of command of the offense on and off the field, in between drills and that kind of thing. Another guy is Joseph Ngata. He just his 4th season. EJ Williams in his 3rd season. There's plenty of leadership on that side of the ball. Even Kobe Pace is in his 3rd season. There's plenty of upperclassmen on both sides of the ball that can be big, strong voices in that locker room.
Well, I would not discount Will Shipley either. He's quite a leader. He leads by example for sure. I want to talk about a little bit. We're good with time, but I did want to talk about the letter that Athletic Director Graham Neff mailed out to the boosters and the donors and the fans in general. Freddie, I want to get your opinion of what that letter actually said, and then reading between the lines.
I would have expected no less, in my opinion. Every year you should be expecting to go to the tournament, right? So I didn't really, I didn't really buy into this. There's a line drawn in the sand and all this stuff. I mean, now I was glad to see that, and I mean, not that our former AD took time or took longer, but I was glad to see Neff come out with this thing. He didn't wait too long. You know what I'm saying? He got it out there and got it done. I'm now looking forward to seeing what, and I know this, everybody, is going to probably crucify me for saying this, but I'm looking forward to seeing what this team looks like next year. I mean, I really am. I mean, you got a lot of youth there that's coming back, and like we said before, how does the recruiting go this year? I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think. I hope so. Anyway, So.
Jason, what was your impression of the letter? Do you have anything that jumped out at you?
I thought it was, I think that Brownell's getting towards the end of his tenure if they don't turn this program around. That's what I think. And I think it could become as soon as next year. I just, there were so many things that went against this team this year. People like to moan and bitch about Brownell, and losing Lynn Kidd and Olivia Oliver Maxence Prosper before the season even started, those were death nails of this team. It left them devoid of any size. PJ Hall was the only real size they had outside of two true freshmen who really weren't ready to play when the season started, needed a year in the program. Clemson's very small at guard still. They brought in David Collins through the portal, and he brought some length and some size to the position. But Alamir Dawes is, still undersized guard. Nick Honor is an extremely undersized guard. You're playing in the ACC, and I know the ACC was down this season. But having said that, how many ACC teams of the teams that made it to the tournament? Look how many made it to the Sweet 16. They ain't getting knocked out left and right like the SEC teams are. Maybe the conference wasn't quite as bad as we thought. Look what North Carolina's done in the tournament. But I'll tell you one thing, watching these first two rounds, Clemson's much further away than anybody really knows. I mean, they're so far away from being a consistent winner. I'm not saying they're so far away from making the tournament, but being able to go in and win a couple of games, because you can do it with PJ Hall, but he's got to have some help, man. The game's changed. It's all about guard play now, and Clemson does not have the guard play, in my opinion. And I don't see where they're going to have it next year unless you go in and bring in a couple of transfer guys. Because you got Chase Hunter. To me, he's really kind of the only ACC caliber guard on the roster right now because Collins is gone. Mm-hmm. He only had 1 year left. I mean, who else do you got?
Honor's gone too, right?
Even if he's not, is he an ACC caliber guard?
No, he's not.
But I'm talking about ACC caliber guards. I don't care if he's back or not. I just don't think he is. I mean, I love Nick Honor, man. He is everything they talk about when they say Clemson grit, but he is a liability on the defensive end of the floor when you get into ACC play. And that's why you see him play so much in the first part of the non-conference schedule, and his minutes go down a lot in the conference part at certain points.
Well, one of the I hold strong opinions. I love basketball, and I attended most every game while I was in school, and we've had tickets and I've gone, but I've lost interest a little bit because I don't see a lot change. But I do want to point out one positive, and this is not looking for silver lining, but look at the mess that South Carolina's in. Getting rid of Frank Martin. And trying to find a replacement. And I don't mean this ugly, but I mean it truthfully. They look like they're dredging through the cesspool with some of these candidates that have some real issues. I mean, cheating or morality. I don't know. It just doesn't. It's not a good look. And I feel
last coach had a long history of blatant cheating down in South Florida while he was a high school coach. So. Hey, if you're willing to hire Sean Miller, why not go out there and hire Greg Marshall, man? I mean, what's the difference? Both of them carry a ton of baggage around.
Exactly. Well,
But I'll tell you the difference. I think Clemson's got strong leadership in the athletic department. I'm still not sold on Ray Tanner as AD.
oh,
I never liked that from the very beginning. Their baseball program has gone so far downhill since he left the dugout. I mean, I guess he was ready to make that move. I don't know. I don't follow South Carolina athletics that closely. I don't have time to anymore, but I never understood that. And, you know, I just from an outside perspective looking in, to me, it looks like he gets played by some of these coaching candidates, you know, like when they hired Will Muschamp. I mean, to me, he got used and abused in that process. He ended up having to go 6-7 guys deep into his list, ended up stuck with Muschamp. I think he did a better job with Beamer, but we're seeing some of the same things here with this basketball hire. I think Sean Miller just used them to leverage. You know, if I'm not mistaken, don't hold me to this, but somebody told me he took less money to go to Xavier. And I don't know how true that is because, like I said, I don't follow South Carolina athletics that closely, so I don't know how true that is. But a friend of mine told me that, and I am having a hard time believing that. But it would not shock me. But I have no idea why their first call wasn't to B.J. McKee. That makes no sense to me at all. That guy's an alum. He obviously wants the job. I mean, and then you talking about bringing in guys with all this baggage. I just don't get it. I don't know what they're doing over there. You know,
They don't.
luckily Clemson doesn't have to deal with all the politics of a board of trustees and all that stuff, man. But that's a mess. And you know, they'll probably end up with B.J. McKee right back where they should have started to begin with.
Yep.
well, a lot of times what's supposed to happen happens. I know B.J. Mackey's father, and I also have met him on numerous times. I want to tell you, he's a class act, a really class act. Gentlemen, I wanted to discuss a little bit about Deshaun Watson. We're a little bit over on time, but, you know, it's okay. We're not holding it. Pretty amazing this past week for him. He's got a new beginning. What are your thoughts, Freddie, on his new beginning?
I was shocked at it being Cleveland. That was, I think everybody was. The money does, you know, the money part of it makes me feel as though they know something already. I mean, and I say that because, you know, why would you go spend that much guaranteed money if you didn't feel that he was going to be able to play at some point in time sooner than later? But at the same time, you know, he's still got a lot to deal with, and maybe that's, you know, maybe that's going to be coming to a close soon. The NFL just, in my opinion, doesn't handle things, you know, as good as they should. And I say that in that, you know, that investigation's still going on, you know, over a year now, or close to over a year now. And, you know, they don't seem to be any closer than they were. You know, they haven't given any update that shows to me that they're any closer. They don't have a great track record either, which I think is gonna hurt Deshaun, you know, down the road as well, whether he's found to be innocent or, you know, or not in the civil charges or civil lawsuits and stuff. I have a lot of concerns there. As far as I do believe he makes them a contender. I mean, you know, they've got some playmakers there, you know, if they'll build around him, which, you know, instead of getting rid of them like, you know, Houston was doing.
Jason?
Yeah, the NFL is just, Cleveland needed a quarterback. They went out and got one. Baker Mayfield wasn't coming back no matter what. And they went and got the best one on the market. I mean, and once they were told no, they came back and offered him a bunch more money and made it where he couldn't tell them no. But, you know, I don't think Cleveland knows something we don't know. I mean, he's going to get suspended. I don't care what happens. This thing ain't never going to trial. He's going to settle him. That'll come. And they structured that contract in a way where the first year don't call for him to make all that much. You know, he makes far less money in the first year. That way, when he is suspended, he don't take near the hit on that salary. So they know the suspension's coming. It's just a matter of whether it's going to be 4 games, 6 games, whatever. And as I don't think the NFL has had to be speedy or anything about this process. He knew he wasn't playing last year. He wasn't never going to take the field last year. He wasn't never suiting up for the Texans again. There wasn't nothing they could do before. They weren't going to – I shouldn't say there wasn't nothing they could do, but they weren't going to do anything before the criminal stuff was finished. And I think we'll see a resolution to this thing before the season. The civil suits were pretty close to being settled at one time before the trade deadline. I think he had reached agreement with 18 of the 22. So I fully expect those things to get settled, then women to get paid off, whatever, and him playing by no later than the second half of next season. And I'm with Freddie. This makes Cleveland a Super Bowl contender. I know in the past the Browns has been where a quarterback goes to see his career die, but they got pieces in place right now. They are built to win right now. I don't know how big the window is. I'm not nearly the NFL guy I was at one time, but it's at least a couple years. There's a couple years there where they're going to have an opportunity to win. Like I said a minute ago, they just needed a quarterback, and they got one now.
Yeah, well, I for one am glad for him. I know that the burden of proof is less on civil litigation than it is criminal. And with the criminal investigation put aside by the grand jury, I would imagine that this is giving those ladies a sense of urgency about settling because it's all tied together. So their window, as you use Jason's term, their window of extortion, in my opinion, extortion may be coming to an end. Well, gentlemen, it has been a pleasure being with y'all. We'd like to thank you, Jason Priester from allclemson.com, for being with us tonight. We're always glad to have you and appreciate it. And if you would, please go back to our YouTube channel and like us and subscribe to us. This has been episode 7. We'll see you guys next Monday at 8 p.m. in prime time for another episode or podcast of Outside the Box. Have a great evening.